A rebel officer, remarkable, a hussar dress, passed towards our army within 100 yards of my right flank, not perceiving us. He was followed by another dressed in dark green or blue, mounted on a bay horse with a remarkably large cocked hat. I ordered 3 good shots to steal near to them and fired at them, but the idea disgusted me. I recalled the order. I was within that distance at which, in my quickest firing, I could have lodged half a dozen balls in or about before he was out of my reach. I left him alone. The day after, I had been telling this story to some wounded officers who lay in the same room with me, when one of the surgeons came in and told us that it was George Washington. I'm not sorry that I did not know at the time who it was.
Lieutenant Patrick Ferguson, September 12, 1777. Hi, my name is Andrew.
I'm David.
And I am Darien.
Join us today as we talk about a peculiar piece of history that Patrick Ferguson used on that fateful day, the Ferguson rifle. Patented in 1776 and bored in a .63 caliber, the Ferguson rifle was Ferguson's weapon of choice at the Battle of Brandywine. Of course, he did invent it after all. It is notable for being one of the first breech loaders to ever be used on a battlefield. Wielded by an additional regiment of 100 men under his command, the idea was highly experimental.
This rifle had a few main advantages. These were the speed with which it could be loaded, and its performance in conditions normally difficult for flintlock muskets. One such advantage was that it could shoot up to 7 rounds per minute, compared to the 4 shots a minute from normal flintlocks, and even slower for traditional rifles of the period.
Unlike the guns of the time, where loading required ramming ammunition down the barrel with a ramrod, the Ferguson rifle is surprisingly similar to guns you would find today. You would load the cartridge by rotating the trigger guard at the rear of the gun, making it easier to reload and clean.
This also helped his rifle withstand the elements. When he poured water into the pan and barrel of the gun, along with the powder and the ball, he could fire it half a minute later, as we can see from page 12 of the memoir. For most other guns, extraction of the cartridge would have taken minutes.
Ferguson was able to shoot 5 shots in a row on a bullseye in a target 100 yards away, with a few others being inches off the mark. The gun was effective up to 250 yards, compared to the average 50 yards of the British brown brats. Arguably decades ahead of its time, it solved the flintlock's drawbacks of balancing accuracy and firepower, as it could compensate for both. Yet after this battle, it never saw any service past the Battle of Brandywine.
In Armstrong Starkey's Pilot to Stony Point, he observes Americans shooting at British officers as a source of major complaints. Although violating the 18th century standards of war, it was not always held. His journal paints a contrast between American and British ethics at the time. He was wounded later that day, disabling his ability to hold a rifle. As we can see on page 17 of the memoir, the reason he didn't fire at what happened to be Washington was because he was seen as ungentlemanly, and it was not pleasant to fire at the back of an inoffending individual.
The technology behind the gun never did spread. His honor prevented him from that becoming true. And ironically, his honor spelled his death in his next major engagement as well, refusing to surrender when surrounded by the enemy. It's difficult to say what could have happened if he lived. Maybe the weapon could have continued use if he shot Washington. In W. Keith Neal's The Ferguson Rifle and Its Origins, he reveals that guns technology wasn't even new. It was based off sporting guns created in France in the 1720s. The best technology was in Ferguson's hand that day. Combined with his personal skill, he could have changed the world, but he didn't. As a result, the gun was never recognized and put away in storage. Breech loading technology would take a pause, as the potential for his gun ended with him.